Thank you. So good morning and happy Lung Cancer Awareness Month. The advocacy in me just wants to take just a few seconds to maybe make you aware of some things that can you hear me okay? Okay. I am a loudspeaker anyway, but maybe make you aware of some things that you didn't know, such as lung cancer is the most deadly cancer. It kills more than breast, colon, and prostate cancers combined. And you can help us spread awareness too. For example, if you know someone that has had a cough for more than 2 weeks, advise them to go to their doctor. If you know someone with a history of smoking, encourage them to go to their doctor and get their low-grade CT screening. And then lastly, help support the scientists, the researchers, and the doctors who are working so hard to eradicate this disease. If it weren't for all of their contributions, I would not have celebrated my 4th post-diagnosis birthday. So, got that out of the way. Lung cancer is so not a sexy thing to talk about. But I've had an incredibly blessed and miraculous cancer journey. And when I was asked what I wanted to talk about today, it was hard to pick just one thing, but I chose to speak about creating a good support system, because I think everybody needs one, even if you think you don't. And I would have a very different story to tell today if I didn't have the support that I did during my 2 years of treatment. And I probably took a different approach than most in assembling my support system, but my tumors were growing at a rate of 30% a month. So I had to be efficient. And I just kicked right into business mode, as I called it. I pushed the emotion aside the best that I can, had a little help from Cymbalta, for any of you who are familiar with that drug. And then I began to put a plan together of how I was going to beat my inoperable and incurable disease. And that was just medically speaking, by the way. And you'll hear some spiritual undertones as I go through these steps in building my support system, and I'll explain those at the end. But the first step I took in building my support system was I sent out a mass email to pretty much everybody I'd ever met that I thought could help me fight my disease. It said, "Each of you has a uniqueness and/or a specialty that I hope can help me through this." And I sent it to a childhood friend that was an oncology nurse. I sent it to an ex-boyfriend plumber. That was a fun one, because he could install my water filters on the sinks and shower heads in my home. I sent it to a former employer who was a biochemist and worked on clinical trials. And I sent it to my holistic friends who could put a dietary and supplemental plan together for me. And all of them were right there for whatever I needed. What I came to realize at that time was that God had been equipping me with everyone and everything I needed, and I didn't even realize it. I'd actually even traced the paths that I took ever since childhood, and it was almost like a puzzle was coming together. But after I sent out that email, my next step was to find a good church. And like most people, it takes a traumatic situation to turn to God, and I was no different. I didn't just find a church home, I inherited a church family. They were amazing. They embraced me. They helped me grow my faith from not really having any. They prayed with me and for me. They notified their prayer warriors all over the world to pray for me too. God was drawing me closer to Him. It was very hard for me, and some of you may relate, to trust a God that allowed me to get this deadly disease. But for reasons I could literally talk about for the next hour, and I won't, Miriam, don't worry, I'm healed. And I believe he's using me in ways I could never have imagined. For example, I'm now very active in my church and co-lead a weekly hope and healing group for cancer patients. My immediate family was especially supportive since a lung cancer diagnosis was not new to us. My dad, very unfortunately, lost his battle to lung cancer 13 years prior. My cat actually had lung cancer too. Yeah, I lost her 2 years ago. So we knew the challenges that we had ahead of us. My mom left her home in New York and came to stay with me for as long as I needed her, and she was right by my side even through her terminal cancer battle. My sister, she went to literally every doctor appointment with me. She even made every doctor appointment for me just so that I could focus on other things, anything but cancer. And I never asked my mom or my sister to do anything. They just knew what I needed, and they did it. And since God doesn't walk here on earth with us, he uses his people to do those good works for him. My work family, they were just that, a family. I really didn't have to take any steps to make them part of my support system. They just were from the very beginning, and in so many ways, from doctor referrals to a flexible work schedule. They gave me this iPad that I could go to my doctor appointments with and work during them so that I didn't have to use all my vacation and sick days for. They offered to set me up to work from home when I didn't feel like going into the office. They used their connections, provided me with guidance of all kinds. They've donated over $150,000 to lung cancer research on my behalf and helped share my story through the social media. The company's CEO gave me his jet to go anywhere in the world for 10 days. Who does that? I guess when you have money, you can't do anything. But they're always checking in on me and yet giving me the normalcy that I needed to maintain on a day-to-day basis. But if I'd never told my company about my diagnosis, they would never have known to rally around me like they did. And they made me just see how blessed I really was. And I was receiving so many blessings that, and unlike Jeff, I don't have any props, but I started a blessings jar at home. And I would write down on little slips of paper every time I had a blessing or thought of a blessing, and I'd drop it in that jar and empty the jar out when I needed some encouragement. There were things on there like tumor shrunk 30%, or my hair grew back, and with a vengeance, you'll see in some of those pictures, or got down to a size 6. Yay. Gained some weight since then, luckily. But next to my support system was my friends, and I really don't even know where to start there. They stayed with me when I didn't want to be alone. They sent me care packages. They prayed for me, cooked for me, researched for me, constantly sent me encouragement, brought me to my doctor appointments, and literally dropped everything when I needed them. I had asked one of my best friends who lives in Alabama to go wig shopping with me when I was losing my hair, and of course she said yes. And she had gotten into a car accident on her way to the airport and broke her ankle, as I later found out. But she had called her husband, told him to bring her a crutch and bring her the rest of the way to the airport because she was going to make her flight to Chicago. And I didn't know any of this until I picked her up at the airport. Sorry. I couldn't believe it, but she said, I knew how much you needed me and how important it was that I was there for you. And that was a blessing that went in my jar. The last addition to my support system, which happens to be the largest number of people in my support system, is from the 2 teams that I had set up with the American Lung Association's fundraising events. And the first was Team Susan. That was a team of over 80 of my friends and family. We've been doing the 3.5-mile walk since I'd been diagnosed in 2012. And then there was Team Citadel, which was over 60 of my colleagues. We've been doing the 2,340-step stair climb every year. Yes, with lung cancer. Anybody can do it. And Together, we've raised almost $200,000 and funded 2 lung cancer research studies with the help of over 800 donors. That was when I saw what an impact my story was having on people and how I found my passion, which were advocacy and funding research. I'd been praying for a passion for I can't tell you how long. And then I get cancer, and look what I find. The final step in assembling my support system was actually ridding myself of all negative people, relationships, things in my life. Instead, I devoted more time to those that made me happy. Having a wonderful and large support system made me feel loved and blessed and fulfilled and strong and happy. It also taught me that it is a gift to let people help you. And I know this to be true because I've made gift giving a habit, and I love the way it makes me feel. So in summary, my support system was my family, my friends, colleagues, my church, fundraising teams, donors, people put in my path for reasons that I'm realizing now, and most importantly, God. And this is what I said in the beginning I was going to explain, but I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that my diagnosis challenged me greatly spiritually. But once I made prayer therapy my most important treatment, I pray all the time and everywhere I can. And I thanked God for healing me as if he'd already healed me, no matter what the doctors and reports said. I began seeing blessings of every kind and healing on all levels, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I've been off all treatment for almost 2 years now. And some would say it's because of the chemo that I was on every day for 23 months, or from eating a plant-based diet, still do, or having 3 surgeries, but all of that was God too. He healed me through the medicine, through the food, through the doctor's hands. And I'd say that made him my biggest supporter. So in your goodie bags, I just thought that we can all learn from everybody's or each other's experiences and journeys. I actually put together a handout of some of the takeaways that I talked about and then some extras that helped me along my journey. My hope is that you'll find maybe one thing that will help you or you can pass along to somebody else and it'll help them on their journey. So, thank you.